Welcome to the Orlando Injector channel, where we talk all things aesthetics from injectables to business, complications to confidence, and everything in between. But let's be real, even with my years of experience, I don't pretend to know it all. And that's what this channel is all about. I'm bringing you the experts, the pros in their niche that are ready and willing to give you tips and insights that you can immediately put into action. And I am so excited to welcome my two guests on today. They are right in my backyard, right in Orlando, and they are two highly respected physicians in our industry and have really added so much value to our industry, specifically in our local community. So let me introduce you guys, these amazing fellas. Well, first off, hello, welcome.
Hello. Hi, how are
Hello,
you?
hello.
Let me give you a little background on them. Dr. Irfan Murgasen is an MD, board certified in family medicine. He received his education in Poland, completed residency in Gainesville, and moved to Orlando, Florida, where he began his career as a hospitalist in 2018. After 5 years of bedside medicine, including working through COVID, which is horrible, and navigating workplace discrimination, he set out to create a space free of negativity, full of vibes, and rooted in inclusivity. In October 2022, he and his life and business partner, Ahmad Ayash, established Murgaskin Labs, Orlando's first queer physician-owned and operated aesthetics practice right in College Park. In just 3 years, he has become a national speaker for two aesthetic companies, a content creator for Plated Skin Science, and developed an all-natural PRP-based filler protocol with months-long results. He now offers private training on all his techniques and is building a course on peptides, which I am super excited to get my hands on, and
Yeah.
Morpheus for providers treating darker skin types. His focus remains on high-quality results, patient care, and delivering education that is practical, impactful, and unforgettable. And I want to toot his horn because I'm sure he won't, but he just won Best of Orlando Weekly Awards this year in our industry. What's the name of the award that you won? It's incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
love that. Now, Dr. Roberto Campis is an emergency medicine physician with specialty training in emergency ultrasound, which our aesthetic industry needs so bad, and
Mm.
now an aesthetics expert. Originally from Puerto Rico, he is medical director of the Vanity Room in Orlando, where he and his wife, Desi, who is the most amazing human, had the best photo shoot recently, by the way. She looks fire.
She
Gagged.
was
Oh my
amazing.
God. Helps patients look and feel their best with advanced injectables and laser treatments. He also teaches at the University of Central Florida College of Medicine and is passionate about combining science, safety, and artistry and aesthetics. And if you guys haven't checked out that med spa, you are missing out because it is something that our industry needs. I'm sick of seeing white box med spas, and you guys really set the tone for being yourselves in an industry that kind of becomes a chameleon behind
Yeah.
everybody, right? So thank you
Mhm.
guys for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So before we get into the topic of why I wanted to have you guys on here today. Really, there's a lot going on in our industry. There's a lot of fire, there's a lot of drama, there's a lot of talk, and there's a lot of fear mongering going on. And there was a particular case that happened right in our backyard that really was the catalyst behind me wanting to talk to you guys. And as soon as I heard what was going on, you guys were the first names that came into my head. And I said, I have to sit down and talk to them. But before we get into all the darkness of our industry, I really want you guys to kind of remind me and tell me what it is that you guys love so much about this industry and what are some of the most rewarding parts of your work. So, Dr. Campus, if you want to start off.
Absolutely. So I come from an emergency medicine background. So in my previous life, like I like to call it, it was life or death situations every day. I'm usually interacting with people on what could be the worst day of their life, just trying to get through it. Now in aesthetics, I get to build something, to build a trust with a patient that I didn't get to build before. I get to be part of their transformation,
Mm,
just touching those little things that they need to feel better about themselves, to grow their confidence, to get the best out of life rather than just getting through a bad day. So that's what I absolutely love about this.
it's so true because you were kind of the rip and dip physician in ER medicine, right? I mean, that's the reality of your role is you triage, you treat them, you focus on the trauma, and then you kind of see them off their way, right? But this time you really see them through their whole life journey in all chapters of their life, right? So it's actually quite a pivot for you, I'm sure.
They're both very rewarding, but very different.
Mhm.
And just building something up with a patient that it's gonna make them feel better about themselves is just so rewarding.
I love that. And Dr. Murgasen?
Yeah, so I'm board certified in family medicine, and my training kind of centered around, especially because I did it more in a rural area. I did my primary care residency portion in a town that had like two traffic lights, was not a very big area, and it was like up in northern Florida, so a different population of people. And what the center of my training was is that there's a lot of empathy to be had in medicine, especially in a family medicine role, because you're dealing with womb to tomb, everybody in between. You're essentially managing families. So the emotional connection for me for patients was always huge. I always had that. And when I got into aesthetics, one thing that I found to be insanely beautiful about it was my ability to be an empath for people is now able to merge a little bit better with the practice of medicine. And I can actually treat people more from an emotional standpoint rather than just a medical standpoint, which to me is sometimes more profound because of the effects that you have on people and where you see them go, how they glow afterwards, and they're able to achieve so much more secondary to your one or two or a few treatments throughout the year.
That's
So
so
overall, it's
true.
just rewarding.
I never heard of that womb to tomb phrase.
Yeah.
That's
That
so
is a very
so
good one.
true. Yeah, I need to write that down, but it's so true. I mean, people look
Yeah.
at what we do and they look at it as it's so vain, but it's so much more than that. Like when you're really impacting how somebody views themselves in the mirror, they're going to show up different in the world, right? They're going to walk
Mhm.
into rooms different. They're going to pursue things that they may not have done had they not had their tox treatments and better skin and all of these things. So yes, what we do on a surface level is vanity, but it's so much deeper than that. And I wanted to immediately kind of dive into why I was so triggered to have this conversation. And it's the what I call the Tonya beauty case. And it happened right in our backyard. And it was kind of shocking because I actually hosted a training, and I'll put myself out there. I hosted a training for their office, not knowing, because as a trainer for a company, I get an address, I get the name of the provider, and I show up and share my experience with certain products. Or had I known this, I obviously would have never hosted the training for them. So I would love, Dr. Murgasen, I know you've gone through kind of the case reports and the documents and all of everything that's going on. Share what happened to this poor patient and why this happened to this poor patient.
Yeah. So before I start all of that, when you did that training, do you remember who you trained?
I trained the nurse practitioner.
Okay. What was the name?
I believe her name was Gabriella. Don't quote me on that. I can find
Okay.
out and put it in the description, but I'm pretty sure her name was Gabriella. But I do know her previously before she started working at Tanya Beauty. And she is a board certified nurse practitioner, but there was another provider in the room.
Okay. So for the Tanya Beauty case, this actually has multiple layers to it. So the inciting event that kind of sparked all of this investigation happened April 16th of 2024. So just last year is when this case started to happen. Prior to that, we actually have documentation from 2023 of a physician here in town who has a med spa who actually had patients coming to her from Tanya Beauty with complaints. So she did her own investigation on this. And then what she found was that Tanya Pereira, who is the owner of the multi practice location or multi location practice, is not licensed in medicine to any degree. Now, on top of that, the provider who was performing the service was also not licensed at all, not a nurse, nurse practitioner, nothing. That provider, her name is also Gabriella.
Okay,
She has nothing. She has a certification as a esthetician in the Florida registry system as a facial specialist, which in Florida terminology is esthetician. So chemical peels, facials, more SD level stuff.
sure.
Okay.
Well,
So
before I misspeak, then I will make sure to, in the description, put the nurse practitioner that I trained just so
right
that
on.
there's no misinformation out there.
Yeah, definitely. So for the case, so February of 23 is when these initial complaints came in. And she reported it, the physician reported it to the health department. One of the agents there received it and then a few days later reached out to her asking, does she happen to have any patients who could be witness to these? And she said she did not. So then a few months go by, and then October comes around, and the physician reaches back out to the agent and asks, are there any updates? I'm getting more patients who have gone to this practice and are still getting treatments. So they take it a little bit further, but that was October of 23, and then nothing happens after both instances, both in February and October. So the health department is receiving this information from a board certified physician saying, there is somebody performing illegal injections in your city. Do something about it. And they didn't do shit. So now we move on. More patients are being seen by these providers. And then it gets to the point to where April 16th occurs. And this patient comes in, Brazilian, doesn't speak too much English. And she actually had been going to that practice for tox, which she was getting injected by Tonya, the owner.
No.
Tonya, which is, here's the gag. Yes. Yeah. So the gag is, and I know you probably did not see the actual Instagram account of Tonya. Tonya has multiple videos of her injecting patients with filler, with tox, flying on a private jet. There are celebrities, Brazilian celebrities, who have endorsed her and have been to her practice telling people to go to it. She had 4 million followers on her Instagram. 4 million. So a lot of that was secondary to the celebrity endorsement. So now you have this account that has so many people following it. Of course, if you're a common patient, you're not going to know that it's not real, right? Like that's more followers than any of us have. And we're certified, you know? So April 16th occurred. Gabriella was the one that performed this treatment on the patient. Her name is Kelly. And during the procedure, she provided numbing cream. Gabriella provided numbing cream and then did port injections for the endolift laser cannula, did the incisions, did the treatment. And while she was doing the treatment, she went back over certain areas multiple times because she didn't like the result that she was getting. And then to end the treatment, she injected Kybella into that same area at the same
Stop.
For better outcome pictures. That's
for
how they
better
stated it
outcome.
on the report.
But
Yeah, for better
better,
outcomes.
Kybella would like for better instant before and afters, or in globally, like the final before and after.
I think she was thinking about the final because what ended up happening was the patient agreed to do these treatments. She was getting tox, and then the patient actually said, I actually have a double chin. I would want to get corrected. So then Gabriella spoke to her about the endolift, and she said that she couldn't afford it. So then Gabriella went and spoke to her management, and they approved to offer it for free if she agreed to allow them to use the footage for social media, websites, whatever marketing. So the patient agreed to this free treatment and then came in, got it done, had the Kybella injected. During the treatment, she was even telling Gabriella that it was painful if she could stop. And Gabriella's like, no, that's okay. You'll be fine. It's almost done. And then finishes the procedure. The day after she goes to work, the patient, and Kelly starts to have a blister come up on the neck. And she texts the WhatsApp number for the practice because they don't have an actual landline. Messages the practice on WhatsApp, is trying to get in touch with Gabriella to find out what to do. And Gabriella says, no, you're fine. This is normal. You'll be okay. So now 3 days goes by and it's getting worse. She's getting more tenderness, swelling. She even is having a reported pus drainage from her right eye, her eye. So she's having an extension of a infection. Not only that, she was having fevers, chills. She was having signs and symptoms of a potential sepsis. And after 6 days, she calls back Gabriella and says, hey, I'm going to go to the hospital. So now Gabriella's all freaked out. And she's like, okay, never mind. Come to the office. Let me see you. Don't go to the hospital, and advises against going to a medical facility to get treatment done. So now she comes into the office. This is April 19th. She comes into the office. Gabriella sees her, and Gabriella decides to do a intralesional injection of Decadron, which is a high dose steroid, into the area because it's swollen. So she thinks, oh yeah, let's just put some steroids in that. That's going to help to really deflate the area.
Sure.
And does a Decadron injection. And then when the patient asks for antibiotics, she says no, that the antibiotics would alter the results.
What
It doesn't make
results?
exactly
The
right.
result of the sepsis and the skin dying.
Right, the necrosis. So Eventually, she gets the patient antibiotics. She does an injection of Rocephin, and then she gives the patient some oral antibiotics. That was reported to have came from Brazil. These are not antibiotics that she was able to get
Okay.
here because she's not a medical provider. So now she gives this patient all of these treatments. She's not getting better because Gabriella can't see her every day to do the wound care as well as the injections to help to calm it down. And the best point of this whole thing was that she also added on 20 minutes of red light therapy because red light therapy is anti-inflammatory. So
Well,
that was a
a little
must in her
scary.
treatment plan. She had to have the red light therapy, otherwise it wasn't effective.
There's so many parts to that story that so many things went wrong at every step of the way. So this is a provider that is not even an esthetician, right? This is a provider that has no license whatsoever, right?
So Gabriella had a facial specialist licensing in Florida. Tonya Pereira, who is the owner, had nothing. No medical, no esthetician. She had a application to a nursing program where she submitted falsified transcripts as if she had gone to a school for it. And then she also had a cosmetology application that was in progress but never completed.
And then who
So
is
she
the
has
medical director of the practice?
I could not find any information on who a medical director was for the practice.
Neither could I, and that's where the problem is, and that's what I so many things could have been avoided for this poor patient, and that's what I really wanna get into from, like, a provider standpoint to a patient viewpoint, like, how breaking down what happened here because there were, like, 10 steps that went wrong at every step of the way. Dr. Campus, so do you think that, for example, me, I'm a trainer, I was a trainer or am a trainer for Revenus Versa. They gave me an address to, hey, this is a partner of ours. They purchase Versa. Can you go and train their provider? I get the address. I show up. I perform the training and then I leave. Do you think from the top level down, do you think companies should do a better job at really taking license numbers, taking certifications, really doing a deep dive into their license background to determine are they even selling to a licensed provider, or do you think that that's not even their job? Such as a device rep. A device rep sells a laser to a med spa where there's no documentation of their medical director. There is no documentation of true licensed providers. Do you think from the top down, from the moment a product is sold to the med spa, that that should have been caught to begin with?
That should not even be a question. We're talking about medical procedures, medication, medical devices. Yes, that the ball is dropped all the way from the top. You're a professional, you're board certified, you've trained with amazing physicians and providers. You are an amazing provider and trainer. So it should be on them from the get-go. If we're going to send my trained professional, let's check. All the licenses are in order. It's this
Mhm.
place legit. That should not even be a question.
There
And the
should
thing
have
is that
been,
either under the law, but nobody is checking it.
right.
There's no oversight. There's no enforcement on any of the rules and regulations that are on the books.
Yeah, there's no checks and balances. Like for example, in this situation, and Versa did nothing wrong. I'm not faulting that situation, but I think if Revenus maybe did a better job at looking into the licenses, and even me as a trainer, this has allowed me to learn. I need to, because this is my license as well. If I'm walking in training these providers, just because I got an address and a name, I need to do my research now too. So with every training I'm doing, I'm getting their license number. It's easy. If they have nothing to hide, it's really quick to look up on the Florida Department of Health website. Are they even a licensed provider to be able to perform these procedures? So I think that there needs to be a better checks and balances system because this whole situation could have been avoided from the top. And then when it comes to medical directors, I'm hearing so much about medical directors. One medical director is medical director for like 20 med spas across the state. And I know in the state of Florida, the Florida statute states that you can only be a medical director for one other location other than your primary location, and it has to be either a continuous county, one that's a neighboring county, or 25 miles away. So do you guys think that there should be more strict, Dr. Murgasen, do you think that there should be more strict regulation on controlling this like wildfire of medical directors making mass money on directing 20 med spas in the state of Florida?
Yeah, hell yeah. I mean, this is a matter of patient safety. So if you are a medical professional, first and foremost, you need to be able to know your no and say when you've been managing enough. And especially if Florida law is telling you you can only manage one other location and you're managing 20, like that just kind of goes back to more of the psychology behind all of this as to why these certain people are in business to begin with. And further past the point of a medical director, the person who's actually performing those services should think twice before asking a physician who is managing 18 other practices, what happens when I have an emergency?
Right.
Is this person going to realistically be able to come in and help me when I need it? Or are they going to be nowhere to be found? Because I've heard horror stories about people having complications. They have a medical provider who they're paying $3,000 to $5,000 for a month, and when push comes to shove, they're nowhere to guide them, and it's their license in the end. So
Mm,
it's really weird, but yeah, they should have very, very strict guidelines on this, and it should be registered somewhere that
right.
I have my practice and I'm also going to be registered as a medical director at this other practice. And someone in the Florida Department of Health should be monitoring these things.
I
So
agree.
again, Florida law is very clear on all of this. You
Uh,
are to supervise one extra practice, and you're supposed to be, if it's not your private practice, you're supposed to be either a dermatologist or a plastic surgeon. That's according to Florida law. And you have 30 days to submit your protocol. Who are you supervising and what extent? And you're supposed to submit that to the health department. So
yeah,
all of the things are in place, but they're not being checked, they're not being followed. But
I
scarier than that, I think, is not the amount of practices that they're supervising, but who is actually doing the supervising.
mhm,
Because I know of a lot of retired pediatricians, retired oncologists that have never touched a needle, that do not know how to reconstitute thoughts or what even it is or what it does or anything. So the whole purpose of having a medical director is to make sure that the practice of medicine is being conducted safely,
mhm.
that the training is in place, that the safety measures are in place, and more important, if something bad were to happen, I'm covered. I have someone to back me up with it.
Yep.
Alexis barely sees her medical director, but she knows that her medical director knows everything about the business, and if needed,
Mhm.
he'll be there with the answers. But if
Totally.
your medical director has never touched a needle, it doesn't matter if he's only supervising one office, he has no idea what to do in case of an emergency or how to advise you on anything that you're doing. I think that's scarier than the amount of practices.
I think even as a provider, because you guys are physicians, so me as a PA, it makes me feel so much safer practicing medicine and aesthetics, knowing that my medical director is double board certified facial plastics. Like there is nobody that makes me feel better. And I know that I can call him at 2 a.m. and he'll be like, I'll meet you at the office if God forbid something were to happen. Thankfully, I've never had to call him, but I know that if I do, he's right around the corner and he will meet me at the office and we'll take care of it, and I trust his opinion and his expertise because it's all he does. So I feel like I have the holy grail of medical directors and he's
Yeah.
worth every penny. I think as providers, we get scared to spend so much money on these people, and yes, it is a cost, right? It does add to our overhead, and it sucks as PAs and NPs to have to pay out, right, to have that supervision, but it is worth every penny if God forbid you have to pick up that phone and call them. And I think you're right. I think people are hiring a medical director that's their friend, that's an old pediatrician because they'll do it for $500 a month, but they're not going to save you when you have that oh shit moment because they don't know less than you. And it's not just the unlicensed providers that we have to worry about, right? Dr. Murgasen, you were just telling me about another case of a true licensed physician practicing medicine and has gotten into some dirty water himself, right?
Oh, yes. So this is a this forever will blow my mind just because it doesn't make any sense to me at all. So this is a plastic surgeon here in Orlando. His name is Dr. Pham, and he was found to actually be injecting silicone oil into patients, and there was record of him receiving this stuff from a third party source. And what the point of saying this is multifactorial. So not only are there people who are fraudulent medical providers who should not be injecting, doing this to people all over the country, but you also have licensed professionals who do not have the best interests of their patients in mind. And it still stems back to that original thing about you can tell the difference between people who went into this industry for patients and people who went into this industry for money, which is a very obvious thing to see when you know what to look for. And it's truthfully disgusting to know that there are people like that in this industry that are medical providers who have taken advantage of patients in that way.
It's really, really sad. And seeing that we have unlicensed providers causing complications and licensed providers causing complications, tell me about the emotional toll that this plays and how it starts to create these patient trust issues within our aesthetic industry. I mean, they look at our industry and they're like, I'm terrified. There's so much fear mongering going on out there. So tell me a little bit about the emotional toll that it takes on our industry and on patients.
Yeah.
The
Robert?
emotional toll, it's incredible. Not only for the patients that feel completely lost, abandoned, scared, but also for the providers that feel like they don't have a voice to defend those patients because you see on Instagram or on the web or anywhere people that you clearly know that you've done the research and you know they're injecting illegally. You know they don't have a license. They show their product and you know as soon as you look at the bottle that that is a fake product and you take steps like the person that reported Tonya, you take steps, you contact the authorities, you tell them this person at this location is injecting illegally with illegal product. And when you see the timeline, there's a 6 month gap in the investigation, and the next bullet point in the investigation is that that same doctor recontacted the authorities and asked for an update. Have you guys done anything? Because she's still injecting illegally. She's still causing harm to patients. So it is incredibly draining.
Yeah.
The good thing is that a lot of people are looking for second opinions, are looking for more information, and they see avenues like this, and they start listening to more information, and they finally decide to go somewhere to get a second opinion and maybe get past that fear. And they come to providers like us that we love educating our patients, and we will take the time to answer their questions, calm their fears, and that helps at a local level with our population. And then online with avenues like this, we can reach more audiences, but it is very toll.
I
Yeah.
agree. Even so we have unlicensed providers that are causing complications. We have licensed providers complications, and now we have influencers offering DIY tutorials on how to self-inject tox, how to buy it from Korea, how to buy filler from the UK, how to inject threads. There's this whole DIY craze on social media, and what I find to be so interesting is whenever I comment, there was an influencer that performed DIY talks on herself that she purchased from God knows who. She ended up giving herself an eyelid ptosis, and she actually talked about how she created this complication on herself, and she kind of made fun of herself, which I appreciate her actually sharing her complication. But she said that her ptosis was caused by basically her frontalis injections. And I was like, you're still not educating them correctly. And so I commented in a very loving, respectful way. And I said, no, actually, likely the cause was from your corrugator, not your frontalis. And she's like, you're just worried about patients not coming to see you because we're learning how to do it ourselves. And it kind of clicked a little light bulb. And I would love love to hear you guys' opinion, but in my experience, I think that the patient is becoming more educated because we're seeing so much fear mongering. We're talking more about complications. We're seeing all of these things in the media about people getting hurt. I think patients are becoming more educated. And in fact, my numbers aren't down. My numbers are up because they're no longer wanting to go to that quick fix injector, the one with the $6 per unit price of tox, which I don't know how they can even do that for Botox brand. I think that it's actually flooding patients to really educated providers, all of these trends. And tell me if you guys agree, if you're experiencing kind of a rise in your numbers because the patient is becoming more educated.
I mean, my numbers have been going up, and I don't know if it's secondary to just that, but I think that one of the major things when now we're in this age of social media and there's quick access to a lot of things that we didn't really have access to 15 years ago. Like this industry is still a baby. So it's still in its formative stage. But for me, I think I have a lot of patients who are more educated. They've seen things online, they've heard other people's lingo and the terminology. So they're coming in more well informed, which I love because I'm able to have a much more profound conversation with them about what their goals are, what I'm using. But I do have people who come to the office who have been to other people. I'm not going to call them providers because they're sure as shit not here in Orlando. And they have gotten the hyaluronic pen done and their lips look like shit. And they're like, oh, well, how do I fix that? Like, what can you do? I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, this is uncharted territory. Like, I am a physician who studied the rheology of products that are registered and that are FDA approved for use. I'm not someone who has gone through and read about a hyaluron pen, but now as a provider, I have that responsibility to do that because we're now getting these people coming in secondary to these types of complications.
Totally. I'm just grateful the hyaluronic pen is hyaluronic acid and we can dissolve it, right?
Right.
Because I've
Yeah.
gotten those patients as well. And it's really it really is terrifying. From a provider who we've become kind of an educational office because we offered the fellowship at one point. So a lot of providers lean on us. So we'll get a lot of patients that come into our office with complications from other providers or maybe non-providers, just things that happened. And we always, always, always take care of patients. We are not in the mindset of the last person who touches it is at fault. That goes right out the window when somebody needs help. How do you guys feel about that whole concept of like, I can't help you. You have to go back to your, if a patient shows up in your chair reaching for you guys for help, what would you do in that situation? Because we help. Dr. Campus?
Patient patient safety for me is my main priority. From day one, I focus my practice and a lot of what I do in avoiding complications and treating complications. From my background, I did a fellowship in ultrasound, and when I moved to aesthetics, this was like the main tool that I was glad that I brought from the emergency world into the aesthetics because I see a lot of complications from bad providers, from people that are not providers, from illegal substances. And once you're in my chair, your safety is my main concern. Not who put it there, what did they put there? It's like, how can we fix your problem? So, to answer your previous question, yes, we have seen a huge increase in numbers coming in with with a lot of research on, listen, this happened to me. I believe it was illegal or it was the wrong product. I know that you do ultrasound. I know that you handle complications. Can you at least help me understand this? So yes, we've been seeing it a lot, especially for me that I'm a Spanish speaker, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these things that are going on in Florida and in Orlando are
And Kissimmee.
in my community, are
And
taking advantage of people that do not speak English, that culturally we're used to, well, I have my friend has a cousin that works doing this, so he'll give you a discount.
mhm.
And as long as we keep talking about this as an industry, things like this will continue to happen because there is a lot of respect for medicine in our culture. So the more people understand that this is a medical procedure, the more they will start coming to see us to help them with that complication, with avoiding those complications that they've seen
Yeah.
happen in the past.
I agree. And I think just like Dr. Murgasen is putting together this incredible peptide course that we all need, I think we need an ultrasound, a Dr. Campus ultrasound
Oh,
course in
yes.
Orlando. And I think you guys need to do
Yes.
that to help our industry. Come on, guys, the people need it, including me, because I know nothing about peptides, and an ultrasound, full disclosure, still looks like a broken TV to me. And so
Yeah.
I know I am a great, well-educated provider, but I don't have any knowledge on either one of those. So the industry needs you guys, and I think you need to tap into that because I think a lot of providers would sign up in a heartbeat because it's so, so needed. So I gave you
Definitely.
guys homework.
Really working on that one. And another thing that I'm starting to work on is we need to also educate the medical providers that are not in our specialty on how to deal with recognize certain things. As an emergency physician that has trained emergency medicine residents, that's something that I think we need. We need to go back to those residency programs and like, listen, it might not be a stroke. You have to think that as at least if they had Botox, uh, you see it might not be a bruise, it might be a vascular occlusion.
Mm-hmm.
Those things that you will never consider in the hospital or you're not equipped to deal with at the hospital. That way you can send them back to the provider or get in contact with that provider and make an educated treatment plan on those patients. So that's something that I'm working on also.
I
Yeah, that'll
agree.
be significant.
Yeah, I agree. I had a long time ago a physician went to a plastic surgeon and got injected, long story short, infraorbital artery was completely occluded. The plastic surgeon who performed the injection said, "Don't worry about it, it'll heal." Long story short, the physician patient went to the ER and the ER gave her some steroid and basically offered her a little wound management and sent her home. She had full ischemia of the roof of her mouth and the medial cheek, and it was horrible, but nobody wanted to touch her. Nobody wanted to take care of her. The plastic surgeon shoved her away. The ER they weren't equipped. They didn't have the education on even how to recognize it. So there are so many pieces to this puzzle where this patient was just neglected and it could have been taken care of. And it's so sad that I think what infuriates me the most is that it could be avoided. Obviously things happen, right? There are risks to injectables. But from the provider all the way to if they show up at the ER, everybody needs to be educated on all of these things. But it's going to take time. Like you said, Dr. Murgasen, this industry is in its infancy. We've been around for quite some time, but it's still like the first 20 years of the industry. So all of these
Yeah.
things are kind of coming together. And it's kind of the growing pains of the industry. So now let's talk to the patient, to the patient that's watching. If I were a patient and I'm trying to vet my provider, what can I do to find out if they're licensed, if they have the right documentation, if the med spa is legit? What is their website, or do I call the office and ask for their license number? What should I do if I'm a patient to gather this information to make sure that I am protected and I do my homework before I let somebody poke my face? Dr. Campus, do you want to get into that?
Oh, yes. Florida makes it real easy for patients because Florida only physicians, nurse practitioners, PAs can inject. Every license that is given by the state, it's available online under the Department of Health. When you go to the Department of Health, you can just type on Google medical license search and it will show up and you put the provider's name there or their office. It gives you so many different options that it's impossible to miss if the person has a license. And then it will show the provider's name, the license that they hold. So right away, if you see that it says facial specialist, that it says RN that it says anything other than physician, nurse practitioner, PA, or CRNA, that gives it away right there.
And even
Another
the
thing, right?
DBPR, that's another resource that patients can go to and they can actually see licensing wise what does that business have, because DBPR is going to also show all registration for every designation, right? Estheticians all the way up to physicians. So that's another good resource as well to be able to look into, even if you're just getting a facial, because there are places that I have heard about that their estheticians are not estheticians.
Mm-hmm.
There
Yeah.
are licensed med spas that have a licensed, well-educated provider giving those responsibilities of treatment to people that are not licensed to do it. You still go into a licensed place. So if you look on DBPR, it will show that that is a med spa, that it's a medical office. But then when you get there, if you didn't check the license on Department of Health, the procedure could be being done by somebody that is not licensed.
Yeah.
So checking those two are the main ones, the kind of the easiest ones. Also, Florida law says that each establishment needs to have their licenses posted or available. So when you walk in, you can always ask to see the licenses. And again, physician, nurse practitioner, PA. If it's not listed there, you should walk away. You should
Mhm.
always ask to see what products they're using. Where do they come? One giveaway that I see all the time, it's labels in Spanish or some other language. If it's if it's an FDA approved product, the label is going to be in English. It's
Mm-hmm.
not going to be in Spanish. It's not going to say lidocaína para inyección. They did not buy that legally.
Right.
It's
And
so
a
true.
little trick that I learned not too long ago is that Hylenex, it's actually harder to buy than filler when you're buying illegally. You can buy illegal Botox, illegal filler any day. Now, illegal Hylenex is very, very, very hard to get. So one thing, and I learned this from a patient that asked so if something goes wrong, are you equipped to dissolve the problem? And the provider was like, no, no, I don't have the dissolver, but I can send you to someone that can help you. So if you are injecting anything on the face and you don't have dissolver, most likely you bought that filler illegally and you haven't been able to buy the Hylenex illegally. So you should walk away.
I had
Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I had a patient the other day ask me if I could mix the Sculptra in front of them. And they were like, "I'm so sorry to ask. I'm just so nervous." I'm like, "Girl, I have nothing to hide. I am happy to mix it in front of you." Like if that provider has nothing to hide, but, we are an open book, right? Our license number, anything, right? If you have nothing to hide, then ask. Patients, ask questions. Don't be scared. It is your face, it's your health. So if you're a patient watching this, do not fear asking for a provider's license number. If they are legitimate, they have nothing to hide and they are happy to give it to you. If they are
And
not willing to give you their public license number, then maybe that's a huge red flag, right?
yeah, I think like from a safety perspective, what I've told a lot of patients, because I've had patients come into the office who have gone to other places and they came to me for complication management. And I think one of the main things is you never are going to turn away a patient because they're coming to you for a reason. They don't want to go to their old provider for a reason. So sending them back to a place that they were already dismissed from is poor patient care, period. So now you have these people and they're in your chair and I'm educating them, like whether or not they come back to me, like that's not my problem. Like I'm here to manage you for whatever the problem is, and I'm going to educate you while you're here. When
Right.
you go back or when you go to any practice, you need to ask what are their emergency protocols for these situations? What is their licensing? You know, like how long have they been practicing? What was their background before? Like when I do a consult with a brand new patient, I talk about myself first to give them more information on who I am, what my training is, why I'm in aesthetics, and what I do well now. And my licensing is right up behind the back of my head on my wall. So the education perspective I think is huge, but when you think about this as well, look at medicine. How many patients in just the medical world are courageous enough to question their physician or their medical provider? How many patients are not understanding what their doctors or medical providers are telling them and they just take the information and then they go home and they're still confused, right? This is a systemic problem across the board where patients are not empowered enough to ask the questions for their own care because they don't want to come off as stupid or their medical provider is intimidating them, which is crazy. So this is behavior they've known from before and they just carry it over into aesthetics, which is why they don't have that confidence to ask.
I couldn't agree more. And I think in aesthetics, I would love to somehow, and it's so hard because we have no real like governing body over aesthetics, right? There's no laws. Every state is different. So how do we even get on a national level, get everybody together? Because in Texas, a sanitation worker can inject, and in Florida, he can't. So sounds like such an easy thing to do to help regulate these concerns better, but it's not, because it really has to be on a state level. So it's almost like you have to set the tone in your own state and then have other states maybe follow suit. But my thought is that, and I would love to hear your opinions. I feel like there should be some form of an aesthetic registry, like that you are
Yeah.
a certified injector or aesthetic provider, that after like 1,000 hours, you get put on this registry. But up until then, you are not allowed to be on the registry. You haven't like passed go, right? And what are your thoughts on some form of registry that a patient can easily tap into and be like, oh, okay, Alexis Bowie, I see she's on the registry, which means she's done at least 1,000 hours in aesthetic medicine, supervised aesthetic medicine.
Love that.
I
I
love
think
that
it's
idea. I think that goes back to the growing pains of the industry. And until we manage to turn the industry into a specialty and people recognize it as a specialty, even us among medical providers, that is going to continue to happen. So yes, I agree 100%. There should be a registry. Not only that, there should be a governing body that is going to assure that the right type of education is done. We all started with a weekend course. We all started taking a little class where they showed us how to mix the toxin and this is how you inject lips. And a lot of
yeah.
people go on their merry way thinking that they know everything about aesthetics with that. And there's people like us that spend years and a lot of time and money into education for ourselves and educating the next generation and our patients. So that mentality needs to be more present across the board. So I agree. We need regulation, registration, all of those things.
And I think something that we also need, I think that we're screaming for and crying for, all of these big conferences, these big companies that put on these conferences, I think they are able to reach way more providers than any of us are individually. Every single one of those conferences should be able to work together to create a seminar at each location that goes over the wanting of medical providers who are excellent in their craft to be involved or to sign up to be involved in this governing body. If you're interested in being a part of it, you're interested in helping to create regulation, please sign up so that way everyone can get together and then form a meeting where all these people come together and do a think tank. Like that's what this industry is needing, because if you think of medicine, how long has medicine been around? How long have all these governing bodies in medicine helped to create better regulations and protocols for medical providers? We don't have that yet. We don't
Yeah,
have an aesthetic ER. Like imagine creating an aesthetic ER where patients can go to if they're having complications. That's a standalone location that has that capability to manage patients in aesthetic emergencies. Like
and
these are all things that are on the horizon that people may not have thought about or they haven't delivered on yet. But
I
these big
agree.
companies need to help with that.
I
Yeah,
agree.
advocacy is going to be the first step.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's such a big, for lack of a better word, project, such a big undertaking. And it's like, you're right. It's the big companies, the big pharma companies that have the most reach and the most bucks and the most big names in their pocket to really kind of have the power to start executing this. And it's almost like there needs to be like a regional representative from each state to kind of come together into one boardroom and say, like, we need to lay down the law. But all the states need to get on board. Like, it's
Mhm.
insane that you hop the border to Georgia and an RN can inject there, but then you come back here and RN can't inject here. And it's just there's too many discrepancies and too much gray in the
Right.
laws that it's such a big undertaking. But I think until all of that gets resolved, us doing our individual part by like you guys, I know how vocal you guys are on social media about cases that pop up and educating the patient. And when these dark cases come up with these complications, we don't post about them to like make fun of the providers or anything like that. We're posting about them to educate providers and patients about the dark side of aesthetics. All we see are the sunshine and roses and the beautiful before and afters, but that patients forget that there is a dark side to this industry that needs to be talked about and needs to be brought to the forefront so that patients aren't blindsided and are more educated and well informed. When they sign that informed consent, they deserve to be informed, right?
Yeah.
So I am so grateful to have you guys in my backyard because I know if I were to call you guys and I needed help, I know I can count on you guys and your opinion and your expertise. And I know any patient that sits in your chair is so, so blessed and lucky to have you guys as providers. I would like, despite all the darkness that we talked about, our aesthetic industry is freaking bomb and we do a lot of good and it is still fueled with and filled with passionate, educated providers. These bad apples just really create fear in our industry, and I hate that for us. Dr. Murgasen, if you could wave a magic wand and fix one thing in this industry tomorrow, what would it be?
The main thing that I would improve on and change is what it takes to open a med spa. If you want to open a med spa and perform these services, there needs to be a standard protocol and certain check like boxes that need to be checked for you to be able to move forward with it. So that way safety is there, SOPs are there. There's none of these requirements when you open a med spa, especially in any state, I feel. To figure out to create a SOP is something that you kind of hear down the road. Like it's not said to you initially when you're opening up this practice. So I would love to change that portion of it so that way from a safety perspective, you know licensed professionals are treating you and they have every protocol necessary to manage an emergency.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And there should be continued checks in that. Like for our quad A surgical suite, like we have routine checks. We have somebody showing up and they are checking everything off. They're going through our patient charts. They're going through our employee documentation and our CPR and ACLS and all of that stuff for surgery patients. And then it's like the med spa part of the practice is off the hook, right? I think there
Yeah.
needs to be somebody whose job is to go into all of these med spas and make sure they have their list. And if you don't get this, you get fined. If you don't have 8 vials of Hylenex, you get fined. If you don't have quality products that are not counterfeit, you get or you need to close down. But there should be a list of things that scare the crap out of med spa owners, and that is what's going to help protect our patients, right? Because we don't want to shut down, so we're going to get everything on that list. And all of these things, a standard of education for our industry, having somebody like you said, Dr. Murgasen, coming in and really having good checklist of things every med spa needs, licenses, insurance, everything. I think if all of these things were to take shape, it wouldn't be the wild wild west of specialties anymore, and that's what it's really become. Dr. Campus, for the provider watching who's feeling overwhelmed, under-supported, doesn't have a great medical director, or is just afraid to speak up, what's your message to them? If they see something going on in the industry, they're afraid to speak up, they don't have a good medical director, they just don't feel like they've gotten their grip on their practice. What's your message to them?
If you're in Florida, especially if you're in Orlando, we have distinguished ourselves in this city in making community. So even if you're not in Orlando, you have to make community with the providers in your area, with the people that are in the specialty with you. That way you get someone to hear you out when you're stressed, when you're frustrated, because you can't go at it alone. Most of us had other type of jobs before, and we quit those because we didn't have support. And we came into this specialty because it has so much promise. So it's time to make community, get your crew, get your close circle that you can always count on for support to run questions from, to back and forth, and know that you're supported. And when you see something, I know we get very scared on the business side. If I say something, then what's going to be the backlash? How's that going to translate into reviews and the standing of my business? It's a hard one, but patient safety, we can't play with it. So when you see something bad, you have to, at a minimum, discuss it with the patient. Let them know, hey, listen, this is not the right way of doing it. Please do not do that. This is what could happen. At least start in your chair with your patient. If you're not going to say it out to the world, at least start advocating for safety in their room.
I feel that the more I talk about complications, and I've done like 10 YouTube videos on my own complications in my own chair. The more I educate on things that can go wrong, and I've humbly shared my own, I find that it builds the rapport with the patient because I'm not
Totally.
trying to hide anything. I am sharing. I bulged the masseter. I caused an eyelid ptosis. These things can happen, and I'm an educated provider. And I think by talking about complications with your patients, it newer providers think it that they're going to run off, right? Oh my God, there's complications. In fact, it does the opposite. It builds that rapport, and your patient trusts you even more because they see that you're not trying to hide anything from them, and they understand there are risks to these complications or to these procedures. So when you talk about them, when you publicly talk about your complications, and you talk to them in your chair, I think it only strengthens the relationship with your patients, if anything.
Yeah, and that's the whole beauty of informed consent because before you even touch them, you're telling them, here are the potential complications. And whenever I'm doing filler patients, I always talk about a vascular occlusion beforehand, vasospasms, what to look out for, what are the differences, how do you treat it, and the timeline. And I have a phone number that patients can reach me even if it's midnight. If they have a concern or a question, because I'm my own provider here. I'm single provider right now, so I'm always on call for my patients. So no matter what time of day, if they have a problem, it could be a weekend, I could be on vacation. I don't give a shit. I will answer, I will deal with it, and if I can't do it, I have people in my community who will gladly see this patient and help me if I'm not here, which is another point to Robert's point about having community because we can't always be here and be present, but if you have a good team that can be on call for you when you're away, that's good for your patients to even know as well. This is still medicine. We need to be practicing it like medical providers.
I love that so much. And your patients, I know I said it earlier, but your patients are so lucky to have you guys. And it's so true. You need your group chat, right? Your chat that you can send a photo and be like, have you guys experienced this before with your
Mhm.
patient? And it's judgment free, and everybody throws in their ideas. And
Right.
you need that. You need that little tribe, right? I am so grateful to have you guys in my backyard and so grateful that you guys sat down with me. I think this conversation needs to be had more as we grow in this industry. So, thank you guys. Where can patients and other providers that want to learn from your ultrasound course and your peptide course, where can providers and patients find you guys, Dr. Murgasen?
So for me, I have my business account, which is Murgaskin Labs. So at MURGASKIN LABS is the Instagram. And then my personal is Doctor spelled out DOCTOR.IRF is my Instagram. And as a provider, patient, you can reach out to me on both. Doesn't matter.
Awesome. Dr. Campus?
And I'm at the Vanity Room here in Orlando, and you can find anything that's going on with us, with me, with Desi, with the rest of the crew at Vanity Room Orlando on Instagram. And we always keep everything that's going on, everything that's coming up. We'll keep it posted there. You can always reach out to us, and we'll answer your concerns and help you in the process in any way that we can.
Well, thank you guys so much for taking the hour and sitting with me. I'm so honored. And I can't wait to share this with the public and get their comments and hear their feedback. So, thank you guys. Have a great night.